Finding out how to do something is relatively easy. Going and doing it, which is really about your attitude, what mindset, how do you talk to yourself? That's the thing that really, decides whether you're actually going to go out there and do it.
Hey, podcast listener, you're about to discover insider tips, tricks, and secrets to making more sales and converting more prospects into customers with email marketing. For more information about the Email Marketing Podcast or the Autoresponder Guide, go to dropdeadcopy.com/podcast.
Hello, it's John McIntyre here, the Autoresponder Guide. It's time for episode 100 of the McMethod Marketing Podcast, where you'll discover how to grow your business, get more customers, have a better life. Just rock and roll and have a much better life with more freedom, with more time to spend with your family, and a bigger, better, more enjoyable business. Now, if that doesn't sound good to you, I don't know what does. So, today I'll be talking to Ian Stanley, actually. Now, this is a funny one. I'm talking to Ian Stanley, but he's interviewing me, a bit like this podcast I did on podcasting with Carl a couple of weeks back. But this one is, what I wanted to do for episode 100, as you find out in a minute, is I wanted to talk about my story, my background, where I've come from, a bit about how I got to where I am now and what I'm seeing for the future. And instead, I was going to do this myself, just tell the story. But Ian emailed me and he wanted to do an interview for a product that he's selling. So I thought, well, why not do this together? You can interview me. I'll make this the 100th episode on the McMethod podcast, and you can send this to your customers. You'll hear about the whole story in a second. So today you'll discover my story, where I came from, what I've learned along the way, and how you can apply the same strategies to get the same kind of results in your life. Right? So that's just basically the same kind of results, is more time and more freedom. I happen to use that freedom to live in Thailand, but you can use that freedom to do anything you want with, whatever's important to you. To get the show notes for this episode of the Email Marketing Podcast, go to themcmethod.com/100 for 100. Now, a couple quick things. In case you don't know, you can hire me to work with you personally. So if you need an email autoresponder campaign, if you want a conversion funnel, a sales funnel, then I can work with you on that, and I'll apply everything I've learned from the last few years of doing all these interviews and working with probably hundreds of clients now. And I'll apply all those insights, all those strategies to getting you more customers, to creating you a turnkey automated sales and marketing machine with email marketing. Sounds pretty cool. So if you want to learn more about that, or if you want to get on the phone with me to chat about that, shoot me an email, john@themcmethod.com. We'll have a chat about your business, find out if there's a good fit, and if it is, then we'll do some work together and get you more customers. This week's McMasters Inside of the Week is pretty simple, and I'm calling it Get Clients. Very, very straightforward. I mean, the thing is, when people get started, this is probably more of a tip for the people just getting started, in line with this, my background story. A lot of people get started with freelancing and consulting just because it's the easiest way to start making money. And step one is usually to quit your job, because you need the extra freedom to go and do whatever it is that you really care about. And before you quit your job, it's kind of hard to build a proper business. One of the fastest ways to do it is to go and get clients, which copywriting is great for. If you pick up those clients, you bring in some extra income, pretty soon you're going to be able to quit the job, get out of the cubicle, and be living on your own terms. And clients is this really simple way to keep the cash flow coming in. A lot of people complain about clients and go on about them, but clients can be really good. And sometimes they're necessary too. I was reading a bunch of stuff this last week or two about SaaS companies. So these are companies that these are companies that can be built into billion-dollar software companies. But at the start, it takes a long time to start making money with a software company where you're charging people, say, $30 a month for access to the software. And all the stories that I've read is it takes a long time for you to make any serious money off that. And so, the problem is, if you run out of money, the business is going to go bankrupt, and you're not going to be able to work on it anymore. You're going to have to go get a job. Whereas if you have client work coming in, you can at least keep the cash flow going, keep the business alive, because in the long run, there's more upside with that than with clients. So clients can be useful, they can get you out of that job, and they can tide you over while you're building a business that scales a lot more. That's McMasters. If you want to learn more about McMasters, go to themcmethod.com. Follow the links to McMasters in the menu. And as for what it is, it's a private training community for VIPs only. That's a private training community. There is a forum. There's a bunch of training products in there, including the flagship training on how to write a 10-email autoresponder sequence. Makes it very simple, step by step, with videos and a whole bunch of stuff. So check that out at themcmethod.com. And today I've got another review actually. The reviews have been rolling in. This one's from Owen McGab and Now. I hope I said your surname right. Now, 5 stars. The number one resource for actionable email marketing advice. He says, I am now on episode 12, and so far every single episode has been great. I love how focused the podcast is on email marketing, and no fluff so far. which is interesting. I don't know if I've gotten a little bit more fluffy as of late, but I've certainly moved away a little bit from the email marketing because there's only so much stuff you can say about the email marketing. And personally, I find it quite interesting to kind of go in a bunch of different directions. We're down the sales funnels, down the motivation, and the philosophical angle as well, which if you listen to the podcast regularly, you probably understand what I'm talking about. So that's that. If you want to make my day and put a huge smile on my face, go leave me a review, 5 stars if possible. But just ultimately, just be honest. Go onto iTunes, go leave me a review, and tell me what you think about the show. And I will read it out on the show with your name. And hey, you can even put your website in the review, and I'll read that out on the show too and get you some publicity, which is pretty cool, huh? So that's it for now. Let's get into this interview with Ian Stanley and John McIntyre. It's John McIntyre here, the autoresponder guy. I'm here with Ian Stanley. Now, Ian's a direct response copywriter. He writes copy full-time for one of the biggest DR companies on the internet. And he's the only copywriter for them, actually, for a company that buys a huge amount of traffic, which we might go into in a bit. But today we're doing another bit of a different episode because it's actually this podcast's 100th episode, and I wanted to do something special. And originally, I was going to do like a sort of a solo episode where I was going to pick a topic and just rap on it for half an hour and have some fun with it. But we just got on the phone with Ian then, and he's got this idea. He wants to send out he's got an email marketing product basically that teaches people similar stuff to me, how to write emails, how to make money with email kind of stuff. And he needs an interview to send out to them. I was like, man, why don't we do an interview on how to get clients and sort of my story and sort of where I came from, what I'm doing now, how it's all working, how the machine works, and then I can put it on my podcast to celebrate the 100th episode, and you can send it out to your your email list or your customers so they can learn a bit more about how I guess a copywriter goes and gets clients on his own with a website. So you can have some fun with that today. So Ian's going to be doing the bit of the questions and sort of carrying the episode in this one, a bit like the podcast one I did with Carl a couple of weeks back. So it's going to be fun. I have no idea what direction exactly this is going to go in, but you can have some fun with it. Ian, how you doing, man?
All right, I'm doing well.
Good to have you on the show.
Congratulations on the 100th episode.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks. It's been when I first started, I had no idea how long I'd do this. I think the idea was I'd start it for a couple months, see what happened, and just the response has been so much I guess great that it's been hard to stop. I just love doing it, man. It's I think some people just love to talk. Maybe people talk about like they love to hear the sound of their own voice. I hate to say it, but I think I'm one of those guys, and it seems to work all right for this podcast.
Yeah, I think that's the point of podcasts anyway. So I've been told the same thing more times than I can count. So yeah. I understand. Yeah. It's a burden, but a good one at times.
It's kind of like you gotta throttle it sometimes, kind of slow down, give people. But I know, it does work for podcasting. You're right. If you're gonna be on, this is basically radio. If you're gonna have a radio show, you better be good at talking. Otherwise, it's not really gonna work too well. So, before we get into, I guess the story behind sort of, it feels weird introducing myself, but like the story of what sort of what I did and the how to get client stuff that we mentioned. Can you give the listener a bit more of a background on who you are, so they have a bit of context on where you're coming from, what you're up to, what you do, that kind of thing?
Yeah, so basically the past about 2 years nearly, I've been writing copy full time. I was with one company as the sole copywriter for about 18 months. The list of over 1 million subscribers in the personal finance niche. And then I've just recently started working with a company called Crisis Education in Austin, Texas, as the main copywriter. And then just launched my own sort of email copy thing, similar to you, like you said. So just did that in December with, actually teamed up with Derek Johansson, the Copy Hour guy, to launch that first one. So been basically writing stupid amounts of sales letters, especially for the past 3 months. I've probably written, 10 or 15 sales letters, probably 15 at least. So just basically doing this all the time and writing a whole lot of copy and doing that as much as possible. So it's been a fast road and a quick introduction to all of it. Basically, over the past 2 years, I've learned far more than I ever thought I would, and that's sort of led me to where I am now.
Right. Because that's the interesting thing. I remember I launched a product, I think it was a year ago, maybe 2 years ago now. It was a year and a half ago, something like that. And we got on the phone to chat because I think I emailed the list around that time and said, I'm looking to talk to people about email marketing, what they're looking for, and basically do some market research. And I think you were one of the people that got back. We had a chat on Skype a while back. And so you've moved up the ranks very, very quickly.
Yeah, I think when we talked, I had bought your product through Andre's promo. And I remember where I was. I was sitting in my parents' office at my parents' house where I was living at the time, trying to make basically, my first dollar. I think I'd made my first dollar and that stopped coming in. And so, I mean, I was doing nothing essentially. I was teaching tennis 5 hours a week and, living at home.
Yeah.
So things have changed rather quickly.
Considerably.
I suppose you could say.
Okay, well, I feel like we could go in a couple directions with this. We could talk about your story and how you get clients, but let's maybe we can do that next week, or we can do another.
No, let's talk about you. It's
Okay.
your episode. We're celebrating you, the John McIntyre.
All right,
So-
man. Well, this is up to you, man. I mean, I don't know what you can take this wherever you want.
All right, well, let's start with the dirty beginning then. That's I just said how I was living with my parents and stuff. So where were you before you basically got your shit together and became the autoresponder guy?
It's funny because I've told this story a few times, and I'm always curious how far back to go. So I'm going to go back to high school, right? Because that adds a bit more sort of context to the whole thing. And, I'm in high school. I actually happened to be in like a smart school, I think you could call it. You had to do a test again. And it was a public school, but for smart people, I suppose you might say. And so people at this school were expected to be really good, really, study really hard, get really high grades, and then, get some really, top marks in the state, and then go to university, and then go on to great careers. And by year 11, I was sick of it. So I was 17 and decided to drop out. So here I am, this kid at a smart school, and was destined for great normal things like going to college. And the way I saw it is I could do that normal path, and I'd get a job, and I'd get married, then I'll work for 40 years, and then retire and die. And it just did not sound interesting at all.
God, that makes me cringe just hearing it.
So I dropped out. It was at the start of year 12. So start of the final year of school. I was that close to finishing, 9 months away from finishing, and I bailed. And my mum said I had to go and get a job, and I had to do something with myself if I was going to drop out. So I'm still living at home. So I went and signed up to a community college. So that's I guess a college for people who didn't finish school. And that's very cheap as well. So I went there to learn about web design, thinking, that's a good start. Learn about how to build websites, then I can make money on the internet, because I obviously heard about it. And 6 months later, I dropped out of there as well, because it was too slow, too boring. It just, it wasn't really working for me. And during that time, I'd been working at a supermarket as we call them checkout chicks. Scanning items at the front. Hey, how you going today, sir? And or ma'am. It's just doing that every day, man. It was a tremendously exciting life. And
Pretty similar to what you're doing now.
Almost, man, almost. So what happened? So did that, and I was around 9 months after that, about September 2007, I think. Quit the job because I was sick of it. Got my tax return, so I got about $1,500 worth of tax back from the government because I didn't earn enough to have to pay tax, I think, that year. And what did I do with it? I went and bought an Xbox, and spent the next probably 3-6 months just playing video games with a friend, getting drunk, going to parties. It was a productive period. And
yeah, it sounds like you're getting a lot done.
Funnily enough, though, I was trying to do like affiliate marketing, small scale stuff, not with paid traffic, just sort of bum marketing as it used to be called. And I think I made, looking back, I remember looked at it a while ago. I'd made like $800 online that year, in 2007. Which is, I mean, $800 in 1 year doesn't really mean much, but
but honestly, it's a lot of people struggle to get those first dollar even. So
Exactly.
For a lot of people, that's substantial enough to get you to keep going.
Exactly, but that's the thing, I didn't, right? So I got to the, I started partying. I basically had a stream from 2007 to, what was it, 8, 9, 10. It was just a stream of entry-level sales jobs, telemarketing jobs, where I learned a lot about human interaction and sales, but I didn't really go anywhere. I didn't make any money. I was constantly broke. I was just sort of like a teenager who was sort of trying to prove that he was a rebel and independent and all that, which is sort of what a lot of people go through. And anyway, so it gets around to 2011, and I decide to go volunteer in Nepal for a few months. Go and go work in an orphanage, go work in a school. So I did that for 4 months at the start of 2011. It was a birthday present from my parents. And so I went to Nepal, did that, had an amazing time, and came back in June of 2011. And I did not want to be back. I'd been on this epic adventure, the biggest mountains in the world, went trekking, hanging out with these kids, and just incredible, life-changing experiences. And here I was back in Sydney, Australia, and I had to move out from home because Mum didn't want me to live at home, and I had to move out, go and get a job. So I did all that, and I was working at an e-commerce retailer doing some SEO, some really basic stuff. It was another entry-level job. There was was nothing big about it whatsoever. Entry-level salary, And, but I just had that feeling, man, that I want to do something more. I want to do something bigger. I did not want to, play some corporate game, even if it was in the internet business. I didn't want to just work my way up through some company. It just seemed like such a boring way to live. So
Right, and this is still in Australia, right?
This is still in Australia, yeah. So I had the normal life. I was working. I'd catch a train to work every morning. Catch it home every night. I'd be working 8-9 hours a day. 10. Once you had to travel, it's 10 or 11 hours. I didn't really have much of a life.
Yeah, work 9 to 5 and then drink on the weekends and live for that.
Pretty much, man. So, but it was actually about a year before that I'd started building like a website, putting articles on it and things like that. So I had a website that made about $300 or $400 a month online. So I had a taste of what the internet money was like. I just couldn't live on it. But I knew that I wanted to go to somewhere like Thailand, and so I could do kickboxing on the beach, and I could make a couple grand a month online, and then I'd have the life. Then I would have made it. And funnily enough, while I was at this job and working every day, I obviously started wasting time because that's what you do when you don't really want to be at your job. So I started, meeting people. Clicking around on the internet, found a couple podcasts, and when I found these podcasts, one of them led me to the Lifestyle Business Podcast by Dan Andrews and Ian Schoen. And they actually run these internships where they will bring over someone from the West and put them in the Philippines or Thailand or Bali and give them sort of a job for a few months while they get their shit together and build a business and take off. So I did that. I applied to it. And I almost didn't apply. This is a funny thing. This story is it's a long-winded story. But it's interesting, right? Because I found this job. I didn't apply at first because there's no way I'd get that. I'm not that special. I'm just not going to get it. But what I did later that day or later that week or something, I was listening to an Eminem song. Actually, it's a B.O.B. song with an Eminem verse. It's called Airplanes Part 2.
That is a catchy song. I remember jamming to that in college, driving around campus. Very catchy. I know the song.
There's that verse by Eminem, which it'd be fun to look it up right now because it sort of adds, Airplanes Part 2. Just because it's such an inspiring verse, and this is really what got me to apply to this thing and sort of kick this whole thing into gear. Because, I think when it comes to success, whether it's, this starting phase of the journey where you just you're just getting the engine started, or even later down the line when it's getting clients, getting big clients, a lot of it comes back to your own personal commitment and whether you're willing to go all in or whether you're going to question yourself and sort of be a little pussy. So, Eminem's verses, let's see. All right, let's pretend Marshall Mathers, that's Eminem, never picked up a pen. Let's pretend things would have been no different. Pretend he procrastinated, had no motivation. Pretend he just made excuses that were so paper thin they could blow away the wind. Marshall, you're never going to make it. Makes no sense to play the game. There ain't no way that you win. Pretend he just stayed outside all day and played with his friends. Pretend he even had a friend to say was his friend, and it wasn't time to move and schools weren't changing again. He wasn't socially awkward and just strange as a kid. He had a father and his mother wasn't crazy as shit, and he never dreamed he could rip stadiums and just lazy as shit. Fucking talent show in a gymnasium. Bitch, you weren't a After this time, we had a chat. It's actually funny about not swearing. No, we're not swearing too much, but this Eminem verse is a lot of swear words here. So anyway, you get the idea. What he's saying is that pretend that Eminem just didn't try. Pretend he just tried to act normal, that his life didn't suck, that he just sort of had the normal thing. He would never have had the success that he had. And so I was listening to this song on repeat while walking home from work just after I'd found that job opportunity. I hadn't applied. I was like, well, I'm not going to get that. I'm not that special. And then this verse just got to me. It was like, yeah, but if you think like that, you're never going to amount to anything. If you change your tune, this is me talking to myself, if you change the way you think and you go and apply to this job and just take a more aggressive attitude to life, just like Eminem did, you're going to go places. And so I was like, screw it. I went home that night and I applied to the job. And it was strange at the time. I actually had a funny feeling that I was going to get it. I don't know where that feeling came from, but it was like by that point I decided, I was like, I'm in.
You talk to yourself. Yeah, that's interesting.
So did that, did a couple interviews for it, and then they're like, yep, you got it. So I booked a one-way ticket and went to the Philippines. So not Thailand, actually. The first stint was in the Philippines, and the idea was that I had 4 months, and I'd build a business, and after 4 months, I'd leave and have this incredible tropical lifestyle. But after 4 months, man, I had nothing. I was almost out of money. I almost had to buy a ticket to go home to Australia. It was, my site had got knocked out by a Google update. I'd tried some affiliate marketing, gotten banned from Google AdWords, tried doing a dating site, I didn't get one customer. It was just not working.
Okay, I actually want to go back to what you said before, because I actually had written this down before you just said that about the way that you talk to yourself had changed, because I was curious, if there was, if you had like a big, like one turning point, like if there was one moment where you could say everything sort of shifted for you and things changed, because what I've found and what tends to be the truth with any sort of success is that so much of it's psychological, and how much you decide to take action and what you believe and how you talk to yourself. And it sounds like, that was what sort of pushed you over, is the way that you talk to yourself changed, and you stopped, having that sort of view of, I can't do things. I'm not that special. Who am I to, get this opportunity? And you sort of change that. And it's pretty cool that Eminem was able to have that effect on you. And if this whole internet marketing thing doesn't work out, I think you could maybe be the next Australian Eminem. Just so you know.
I was sort of falling into the rap then when I was trying to read it, but it's sort of hard.
You started reading and then it turned into a rap for sure. I could feel your emotion from across the ocean. Now I'm rapping too. See, I can't even stop.
Just having a little bop.
We'll just start a rap group. We don't need to do internet marketing anymore.
Let's do it, man. That's where the money is. That's where, we can even have an order responder and for the rappers.
We'll take it by storm using email.
We can do it. But anyway, no, you're absolutely right, man. I've been thinking lately and telling everyone that I have this conversation with that the game is like at least 90% mental, if not 99%, because it's so easy to find what you need to do online, whether it's getting clients or becoming a better copywriter, or even making there's books out there about how to make $1 billion. It's obviously not as simple as reading a book and going and doing it, but finding out how to do something is relatively easy. Going and doing it, which is really about your attitude, what mindset, how do you talk to yourself? That's the thing that really decides whether you're actually going to go out there and do it. And if you can get that stuff cleared up, that mental baggage, all that stuff that holds us down, if you can get rid of that and get that on, and get the right stuff in there, the right thoughts, man, it's easy. It's really, really easy.
It's very true. As a quick side note, just on that note, I actually, it must have been probably a little bit before I talked to you. It might have been after. Start of 2013, I read the book As a Man Thinketh every single day for 21 days. And I don't know if you've read that book, but if you want to change your life, I had already read the book, 5 times, but I found myself in a bit of I just wanted to really take it to the next level and, change my life. And I won't go into what happened, but a lot of pretty unbelievable things happened over the course of those 21 days. And I would start my day basically with, it's a 30-minute read basically, and by just reminding myself how important my thoughts were and just the quality of my thoughts. Because, your thoughts dictate your actions. And if you can control the quality of your thoughts, you're going to control the quality of your actions. Yep. And make a change. It's very rare that you hear of successful people who talk about how, life is, all the deck was stacked against them and how, making excuses and all that, that's not the way successful people speak.
Yeah. No, it's not. It's funny too. Like I've noticed this in the gym, and I go in and squat or deadlift or do any of this stuff. It's when it starts to get really heavy. There's that I walk in and I'm like, I'm probably going to stall out. I'm probably going to drop the bar today. And I wouldn't even say it to if your friends in the gym. I'd be like, it's getting really heavy, man. I'm not sure if I can do it today. And it's I've obviously stopped myself doing it now. But what I've noticed is that if I let those thoughts even leave my lips, I'm so much less likely to be able to lift that bar because I've pre-framed or primed my entire being or my consciousness to not think that it's possible. So when I do that lift and let's say it gets really hard on the 4th rep, I'm dropping that bar because my brain hasn't been set up to push through it. It's expecting to fail, and it's expecting when it gets too hard that it's going to give up because I've told it that way. And this is so people think like, all right, well, that's great and everything, but you can't just change your thoughts. It's like, well, actually, you can.
You can. I 100% believe that you can. And the thought that you can't change your thoughts is the only thought holding you back from actually being able to do it.
Yeah. Because it's like that thought happens like, I don't think I can do the lift today. If you catch yourself thinking that, or if it's like, I can't quit my job and go and become a copywriter and travel the world. I can't, go and make $1 million. If you say that, you can stop yourself and be like, hang on. I can do it. And you create the new thought. And every time you think the negative one, you replace it with the positive one. Over time, it's going to start to become a habit and it's going to start to define your reality. And you're going to start, if you think it's possible to make $1 million, you're going to start looking at opportunities differently. You're going to work harder. And it's just so interesting. Like some people, you might listen to this kind of thing. Well, this is great. This is so, so common sense. And so, can't you just tell me how to do it, how to get clients? And that's part of it. But this is totally most of the game. If you don't have clients or if you don't have the business or the life that you want, this is where it starts.
The thing is you can know how to get clients. I can tell you, go follow this strategy and if the strategy could work. But if you don't follow the flipping strategy, it's not going to amount to anything. So if you don't take action on what people are telling you, it doesn't matter. And it's your thoughts that are going to dictate that. And it's your perception of really what's possible that dictates what you're going to do and what you actually achieve. I mean, like you said, if you think you can make $1 million, you'll be able to do it. But what's interesting to think about is that there are people who laugh at the thought of making $1 million because it's so easy for them. They're like, yeah, let me make this phone call. Boom, $1 million. You know, let me write this sales letter, whatever it is. Like $1 million to them is nothing. So it's just your perception of what's possible. To them, making $1 million is like it is for you or I to make $1. Yeah. You know, if somebody said you have to make $1 in the next 30 minutes, you'd figure out a way. Yeah. You know, and that's just your perception of what's possible.
Yeah. Yeah. So, bit of a tangent on the mindset side of things. But so to go back to that, so that was what I was around. So I turned up in the Philippines right in October 2011, and I mean, I was there, like I said, for 4 months. The idea was after 4 months I'd take off. But after 4 months, I think I had like $200 in my bank account. You know, I had visas and I had stuff to spend. You know, I had expenses while living in the Philippines. It was cheap, but it wasn't free. And so I was almost out of action. I was almost have to go home, get a job, give up, that kind of thing. And you know, so that's where a lot of this mindset stuff comes in. I had this attitude that I was going to make it work, or I was going to run completely out of money and borrow money from my mum probably to get myself home. And what worked to me is that I'd made a good impression on the people at this resort in the Philippines where I was working. And so they allowed me to stick around like indefinitely, to kind of be like, all right, well, you're doing good, stick around, help us out, and you can leave when you're ready, which was wonderful. And obviously something ended up working, which happened to be copywriting, because I'd realized that if I could make money for a company, then I can basically write my own ticket. I can, I'll never be out of work. You can't replace me with a machine. It's sales and marketing. It's going to be forever. I don't know if you're ever going to be able to automate it with machine, because it's such a creative, thinking outside the box kind of task. And so
I don't think so.
Yeah, like you get software that automates it, but it's nowhere near as good as a proper copy.
No, and somebody still has to write those first pieces or whatever it is. There's no robot that's writing the all that.
So that was where it started for me. I started writing copy, and around about June, this is where it gets really, I feel like this is the simple part, because it's sort of up until this point there's been the struggle, the back and forth, the dealing with all the questioning and doubting and all that. Once I got past all that, it was just that I'm doing this, whatever it takes. It was relatively easy. And what I mean by that is once I started learning how to write copy and I showed that I had a bit of a talent for it, one of the guys who set up the job in the Philippines, Dan, he heard I was learning how to write copy and studying email marketing. So he says, well, I need some emails for my list. You can write some emails. I'll give you a couple $100. And at that stage, I couldn't even fathom that someone would pay $200 just for emails. It blew my mind.
Right, which effectively doubled your bank account at the time as well, right?
Absolutely, yeah. It's incredible. So, I mean, that's where I started. Did a couple sales letters for a friend for $100 each. And that kept me going. It got the ball rolling. And that was where it started. And from there, what happened, I mean, how it all sort of, where I now live in Thailand and travel around and sort of have this dream lifestyle, some might call it. What really... Because I guess the question here is, like, how did I get clients? Because what happened? So I'll go through fairly quickly with this part. I moved to Thailand in October 2012, and I started a website. At that time, it was called dropdeadcopy.com, and I was offering, landing pages and, autoresponders and stuff like that. And I remember I did a podcast with Dan. This is the first way I got clients. When Dan, was happy with the work I did, the 10 emails that I'd written for him, his conversion rate, or email conversion rate, went up from 257% was the increase, which is great. And with this new sort of offer and emails and that sort of stuff. So he was happy. We did a podcast on it and basically told my story and sort of what I was doing. And then made an offer that if you want to hire me to write emails for you too, let's jump on Skype, let's have a chat, and you can pay me and I'll write the emails. And I bumped it up to $500. And a couple people, and at that stage, $500 was nuts. I could not believe it. So and this was not like big money at all. I ended up being in Thailand by then, and it wasn't, it was good money for Thailand, but it was certainly not rich by any means.
Yeah, not in the Western world, perhaps not livable.
No, definitely not. So that's where it started, So I realized that podcasts worked for me. I'd get on there, I could talk. So I went and did a bunch of different podcasts while also building up my own website with a couple of blog posts, a couple of videos, that kind of thing. And it was about 6 months later, I decided, well, I wonder how hard it is to do. How did I do this? I think I went to to create a product, right? So I had some client work, making a couple grand a month, because what would happen is most of it was pretty much all just referrals, I think. And I was posted in a couple different forums, which also brought me some good leads, which paid me. But sort of building up my website, somewhere around then, obviously a lot of people get into a position where like, I've got clients coming in, but what I need now is some product income, so income that I don't really have to work for.
Right now, at this point, had you positioned yourself? Because something I thought was interesting about what you did is, you are the autoresponder guy, right? And I don't know if I doubt somebody called you and was like, "Hey, John, you're the autoresponder guy now. Go and call yourself that." I think you framed yourself and positioned yourself as that guy, right? And that there's that automatic. I mean, I remember the first time when I saw your offer with Andre, I was like, oh, "He's the autoresponder guy." I don't know what that really means exactly, but like he's got a name. He must know what he's talking about.
Yeah.
Like he's, you had that sort of credibility already, which I think something important for people to realize is that, you are as credible as you can add credibility just on your own with things like, how you position yourself.
Yeah. Well, that actually came from, that's a good question, actually. It was around January, it was a few months after I got to Thailand, right? It's about January, February 2013. And I was going through some marketing consulting training because I was trying to find out how to get bigger clients or recurring clients. And the first module in that was, well, you got to create a USP for a client that you work with. And going through the videos, eventually it dawned on me that what the hell is my USP? I don't even have a USP. I'm a copywriter, but there's probably thousands, tens of thousands of copywriters out there trying to pitch their services. What's my deal, And that's what I was like, well, most people come to me for emails and autoresponders. So I think I did a few Google searches, clicked around a bit. It was like, I'm going to be the autoresponder guy. That's where it started. I'm just going, I think I'd read a book called Positioning by Al Ries as well. And that sort of gave me a few ideas too. But I knew that if I would call myself the autoresponder guy, it's a really, really easy way for people to refer me to others. Because they go, oh, he's the autoresponder guy. He just does email marketing stuff. And it adds credibility because it makes it sound like, if you're going to hire someone to write just a piece of copy, hire a copywriter. But if you want emails, you'd rather go with the autoresponder guy than just a copywriter. Even if the quality is the same, or even if the other copywriter is better than I am, you're probably still going to hire me because I'm the autoresponder guy.
Right, and that's sort of that's what I've said to people as well. Is if you want to become a good freelance copywriter and make a living doing that, I think the way to start is with email.
Yeah.
Because there's so many people who just don't know what they're doing. There are so many businesses who need it, but by positioning yourself immediately as an email specialist, there's just a different frame of reference for them to look at you and think, all right, this guy knows his stuff when it comes to email. That's his bloody name.
Yeah. And it was sort of like, I mean, some people think that I tried, I sort of consciously went in this direction. But to be honest, it was sort of like a lucky thing. I didn't set out to be like, well, I'm going to be the autoresponder guy. When I started writing copy, I just wanted to be a copywriter. One day I was thinking I wanted to, be a big-time copywriter, maybe like John Carlton or something. And that's no longer a goal for me. But that was sort of how it started. And then I just happened, it was completely by chance that I happened to write emails for Dan, and then we did a podcast on the emails. And that was where it all started. Like, that's probably the reason that now it's, the autoresponder. I think if I'd written a sales letter for him, maybe I would have been the sales letter guy. Or maybe I would have gone in a completely different direction. So it was a chance thing. Like, I think that's an interesting part of it, is I didn't preempt this or anything. It just sort of came together and happened, and yeah, that's the funny part.
It worked out, yeah. I mean, I think that's typically how this stuff goes. There's hardly any ability to plan for the future of this online world and actually know what's going to happen next.
Yeah. I mean, that's the other thing, is it's hard. Like, some people want to know, like, can you do it from the outset? And yeah, you can position yourself from the outset, but it's probably going to be, if you have no clients or very little, leverage, it's going to be a little bit difficult. If you're just getting started, I think you need to get some clients first and either both figure out what you like doing, what you enjoy doing for clients, and then also what sort of clients you're picking up. It's you can figure out your positioning and USP before you get started, or you could do it afterwards. But there's not some magic recipe. I mean, at the end of the day, just go and get started. Start with what you got, do your best. And one thing that I think has worked well for me is I'm good at like thinking on the fly and just sort of doing, figuring things out as I go along. I try not to overthink things. I just do stuff. And that's been, some people don't like that. Some people think that's, it means I've made mistakes. I've sent out, emails that have mistakes in them. I've done things which maybe if I was more calculated, I wouldn't have made those mistakes. But to me, the return on being a fast mover, especially with anything really, but with something like this, go out there and be willing to fail, try stuff, do all sorts of. I think that's a really good attitude to have with it. So with the USB stuff, just do it. Just go out and try stuff.
Yeah, I'm of the same mold. Do it live, do whatever you got to do, get it done. Money's attracted to speed. You're not gonna trying to perfect something. The fact is, especially in what we do with even with email copy, with sales copy, with whatever it is, you don't know what's perfect anyway. The market's going to dictate what's perfect by pulling out their wallet. So write something that gets 80% of the results that takes 5 hours instead of trying to write this perfect sales letter that may not even outperform the other one, taking 20 hours. And that's, especially with email, people take an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours to write an email, and you're like, dude, just write it in 20 minutes. Write it. I've done this. I've written out typos and all sorts of bollocks like that. But you get it done,
Yeah.
and that's far more important than getting it perfect.
Yeah.
But I think for a lot of people, it's a bit of an oversimplification. Like, well, you can't just go and do stuff. Well, you can. You just have to make that choice.
I think there's this, I think people, a lot of this comes from our childhood, I think probably has to do with how our parents, how we've seen our parents behave and what they've done. Because some people have an aversion to failure. Like, they want to get everything right before they set out, because if they fail, it's a big deal. But other people, they've probably been, often with their parents and probably partly with their teachers at school, they learned, or they were taught that it's okay to fail. It's okay to do things wrong, and it's not the end of the world. And yeah, someone's going to get a bit annoyed. If we swear a little bit on this podcast, there might be someone who's in the car with their kids and they don't like it. But at the end of the day,
this is well behaved for me. It's the best I've ever done.
I think
the least I think I've, other than sleeping, this is the least I've sworn in an hour. Or 30 minutes or whatever in my life.
Well, I think I swore, if I read that entire Eminem verse, I would have, kind of probably sworn more than the last 10 episodes in, one day. So, but it's kind of like you can't, like, I'm not that worried about it. Yeah, it'd be nice to get everything perfect and polished and, get all the swear words edited out, for example, to not, annoy that one person who's in the car with the kids. But at the end of the day, like, just go and execute. Like, aim for volume of, especially when you're getting started, aim for volume of stuff, not, I guess, quantity. There is an argument to say, at least when you're getting started in the early stages, aim for quantity of, like, getting stuff done, getting shit done. How about we say that? Aim for quantity of stuff
100%.
done, not quality. At least later on, you can worry about the quality once you figured out what works. But at least initially, quantity is going to be more important because you're just trying to figure out what the hell's working.
Yeah, I totally. I mean, that's the thing, is you meet people who could recite, John Carlton's theories and Gary Halbert's, and talk about they've hand copied 100 sales letters, and it's like, oh, so how many sales letters have you written? Like, I haven't done any yet, but it's like, well, you can know all the bloody theory in the world, but if you don't do something, you're not going to learn. Yeah. And especially in the beginning, like I said, there's no better way to get good at writing other than writing a bunch. Yeah. And I think going back to what you said about, your childhood and believing in failure as, seeing failure sort of as a result, as something to grow from, as opposed to something terrible. As I played tennis my whole life growing up, and God, I rarely talk about it, but I played in college and could have kept playing after, but I hated it. But it was my parents, it was always such a big, when I lost, I was punching walls and just going mental, and it was the worst thing in the world, because that failure I was so attached to it being terrible that it made me not ever want to go out there. And with writing, when I started doing copywriting and stuff, I just wrote without any judgment. I didn't think, hey, this is going to be great, or this is, sometimes I'll be writing and this is the worst thing I've ever written, but I just send it out, or I just keep going. But not having that judgment, not viewing it as like a personal failure, is what allows you to just keep growing from each failure. If you take them personally, you're not going to want to keep trying. Yeah. But if you just view it as like, okay, cool, I just failed, that's a lesson. Yeah. Carry on.
I think it's another thing too, like I think I used to think that everyone should get into business for themselves. Everyone should go and be an entrepreneur, or I used to tell my mum that when I chat with a friend, Mum, I'd be really idealistic about it, talking about how this is the new way, this is the future. Everyone needs to take themselves more seriously and go and be successful. And now I'm like, man, it's really not. It's not for most people. Like, most people can't do it because most people are perfectionists. Most people can't. They don't know how to fail, or they take failure so personally that it knocks them down, and they're so stuck in their heads. They question themselves and self-doubt and all that, and not only that, they're not willing to work on it. So, like, conversely, someone who's going to be a good entrepreneur, I think, is willing to, at the very least, they're already willing to accept failure and go and screw up a whole bunch of times, or if not, they're willing to develop that ability. They're willing to kind of think, all right, well, maybe I'm not very good at it right now. Maybe I am scared, and I've got lots of self-doubt, and I've got these issues from my childhood, or all that sort of stuff. But because I'm interested in doing this, because I have a mission to achieve, I'm going to do whatever it takes to clear out this emotional baggage and get my head screwed on right so I can do what I need to do.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head there. It's a choice, just like all what we've been talking about here is. I was a prime example of somebody who took all failures personally. Like, when if I lost a match, that was, I failed as a human being. I'm pathetic. I am a piece of shit. I'm worthless. I'd say that for 10 minutes and then I'd forget about it and move on with my life. Yeah. But for those, when you attach that sort of awful negative talk to a loss or a failure, if I did that if I wrote a piece of copy that didn't meet a control, and I found out it didn't win, and I went and punched a wall and, started throwing things, in no way would I want to keep writing.
Yeah.
But I viewed it, but so I had to make a choice though to go, yeah, like I'm going to do this, and failure is not, it doesn't mean I have failed. I'm not a bad person for not doing something well. That thing that I did just didn't go well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now I should get better at it.
Exactly. Exactly. There's this.
But
go on.
Go ahead.
I read this. I read a book recently called "Daring Greatly" by one of the top viewed talks on TED, or the top viewed TED talks by a chick called Brené Brown. She's got this talk on vulnerability. It's a 20-minute talk. It's worth watching. But she's got this book called "Daring Greatly," and it's all about shame. And maybe you might think, shame. Who cares about shame? I just want to know how to make money. What's interesting though is this book. It talks about shame for women and shame for men. It's fascinating how it puts it into. But for men, I'll talk about that just because we're both men. The issue is that, like, shame for men, and I think every man has a certain amount of shame towards what he has done and hasn't done. But the shame for men boils down to the idea of don't be a pussy. So men feel shame, men feel afraid, or they feel inferior when, and I think this is so true, when they feel like they're not capable, when they're not trustworthy, when they can't live up to when they're not good enough to take care of themselves, when they're not making enough. Because it's not like men don't need to make a lot of money. It's not really about the money. It's what the money represents. And for a lot of men, money can represent their ability to provide, their ability to be independent and free. And the point in this book is that if you go and do something, if you write a bad control, or if I, piss off a client, or if, we have a bad podcast or something like that, it doesn't mean that, I'm a bad person or I'm a pussy or something like that. It might be like, the don't be a pussy thing is a good example with like women, in terms of like if a man's trying to meet a woman, for get married, whatever, or just a girlfriend, just have some company, a typical storyline in his head is going to be, if I don't approach her, I'm a pussy. And it's like, no, that's not true. You are a man, period. What you're doing, maybe your behavior is you're behaving in a weak way, so you're acting weak or you're behaving
acting
weak.
like a pussy.
But you are not a pussy.
You are not one.
And it's
the separation of yourself from the action.
Yeah, it's the difference of like I am bad, because this was a lot of people think that if they do bad things, well, they're bad. And that's what we think, I'm a bad friend, or I'm a bad this, I'm bad that. And it's like, no, you may have behaved badly, and you may have done the wrong thing, but you still, it's not even a case of, you've got to get away from thinking about, I think yourself as good or bad. You just are. You are a man, or you are a woman. You're not good or bad either way. You can just behave in bad or good ways, and you really got to choose that. When it's behavior, you can just be like, well, screw it, I can just behave differently next time. There's no ego in it after that.
Yeah, and that's the sort of dilemma of life, right? As people are their identity, they are who they think they are. The thoughts that create the self that is, that's who they think they are. Is what if they fail at something? That's them as a human being, who they are at their core, failing, as opposed to realizing that there's a separate part that just is.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the best quote I've ever heard on enlightenment is just, things pretty much are what they are. Dealing with the world on that level is enlightenment. And that's how we got to enlightenment here, but essentially, it comes down to is, these failures it has nothing to do with you. It's not like you're bad, you're dumb, you're stupid, you're lazy, you're whatever. Just trying something separates you from 95% of the population. Most people are content to live lives of, boredom and mediocrity, which is, and, fine, using the word, things are fine, I'm fine, life's fine, I'm content. You're not content. When you're saying the word fine, you're bloody miserable. You just don't know it.
I like the idea of being like, instead of being like, I'm good or bad, I like the idea of thinking like, you can choose to be whoever you want. So you could be like, well, I'm an aggressive, like you might say like, I'm an aggressive person who goes after what they want, and usually I get it. And then you might be like, well, I'm this, I'm a positive, upbeat, visionary, ambitious, blah, positive, whatever. But in this situation, I didn't behave like that. So next time, I'm going to behave differently in line with who I am. So kind of be like, proactively think, this is who I am. And sometimes my behavior is going to match it. Sometimes it isn't. And when it isn't, I'm going to bring that behavior back in line with who I want to be. So it's like taking that self-image and using creating that self-image to then drive the behavior, instead of looking the behavior to drive the self-image, which is like we go, I did something bad, therefore I am bad.
Yeah, you can, just like we're talking about choices, just you can choose the identity of who you want to be. And sometimes events happen that sort of choose it for you. Like for me, I got mugged when I was 15 in England, and I didn't realize it at the time. It took me 4 years to realize that that minute, 2 minutes was defined every single moment from there on out in my life, because I wanted to become the type of person that wouldn't be held at knife point again, right? So when you create this identity. So, and because of that, you then do all of the actions necessary to become that person that you choose. If you want to be successful in business, or if you already are and you want to be better, whatever it is, you create that self-image. You can make a choice that you won't accept being somebody else.
Yeah.
And you'll just keep going until you get there.
Yeah, exactly.
So back to email clients.
Okay.
We can solve all of the world's problems. I don't know, we got like 10 minutes another time, right? That's all we need.
Okay.
If you had to get your first client and if somebody just erased all of your, resume, your name was Tom Johnson, I don't know why that's the name I'm going with, and you're just starting out, you don't have credibility as far as having written, you've been learning some stuff, you've been going, maybe you've gone through some courses, and you've learned how to write some email copy and stuff, but you've got to find your first client. What are you going to do?
I'd probably just I'd go somewhere where I'm going to meet people who might need my stuff and who know they need it. So sometimes with this question, it might be like, well, I've got all these great skills, I can call people up and do cold calls. Most people aren't going to do that, especially if they're just getting started. So that if I didn't have like the confidence and I didn't have the skills and I didn't have all that stuff when I was at the beginning again, but I knew a little bit about, sort of how to get there, I'd probably just go to like meetup.com and find an, either internet marketing meetup or just a marketing meetup in my town. I'd go there. I'd get to know a few people and offer some value and talk to them about how, because eventually I'd ask them what they're doing, and that's going to mean that they're going to ask what I'm doing. And I'll be like, well, I'm actually a copywriter. I've been studying it for a while. I'm actually looking for my first few clients. Maybe you need some help with copy. And then I reckon, either the first night I went to one of those things, or a night or two later, or I might even go to a marketing conference, because you always meet these kind of people there too. I'd go like that. I'd pick up a client that way, because as long as this means you got to have social skills, you got to be able to smile, you got to be able to have a conversation and shake someone's hand and look them in the eye. And some people can't do that. So I think you really need to learn how to be social, how to be good with people if you want to do this. If you're not good with people, you're really going to struggle to get clients. But if you can do that, I think that'd be the easiest way for someone to get started without doing like cold calls or using some more of the advanced, even intimidating strategies. They might not be that advanced, but they can be quite intimidating to a newcomer. So go and meet people, be cool, help them out. Don't pitch your services, just sort of find out if there's anything you can do to help them. Maybe even do it for free in exchange for a testimonial or something like that. That'd be the way I'd get started, because that's how I did get started, really.
I think that's brilliant. I think a lot of people just that's too simple almost. I think that's great advice. It's just it doesn't have to start locally. Start with people. Not like you don't have to. It's not like sending out an email like you're some MLM person. Hey, did you see this new weight loss supplement that I now get paid to sell you or whatever?
Yeah.
It's just talking to people that do stuff. And one thing I'll say about email is that so few people understand it. I mean, it's mind blowing how bad people are at email. I remember being at a conference at FinCon, this financial bloggers conference, and talking to the owner of one of the biggest personal finance blogs. I probably won't say it just because I don't want to be mean, but you would 100% know who they are. And I was like, oh, so what are you guys doing for emails and stuff? And they're like, I was like, you guys have tested, I'm sure, like what you're doing and how your strategies are and all that. And he's like, no, we just send the email with the blog posts. We've never tested anything or try. I'm like, what? I'm like, you guys are getting, 100,000 visitors a day, millions of people a month. And you're not doing that? No. And it's just like, so if you frame yourself really as an email specialist, it's amazing how people won't even, if you just say that, people are like, oh, I'm not doing anything with my email, and smart people, heaps of smart people and people that are making great money don't know what they're doing. It's like you said, if you just go talk to them, you'll be amazed at sort of how many people will, and even if you want to do something for free to start and just be like, hey, if this works, then you can pay me, or then I'll do more work for you, or something like that. But I think, I don't think it has to be that much more complex than what you said. I got my first thing on Craigslist, and I went in and talked to this company, and when I started talking about email, they were like blown away because they knew nothing. All I had to do was know more than they knew, which was essentially nothing.
Yeah, man, it's incredible. It's incredible. I mean, it's one thing I found, like one thing that drives my client side of the business, a lot of people don't know this, is I just email my list. I mean, people on the list obviously know this, but like when I get, a lot of my clients come from just emailing the list, saying something about, here's a campaign that's, here's an idea for a campaign that, if you want us to run it for you, hit reply and just say, I'm interested. And someone replies, says, I'm interested. I'm like, all right, well, let's get on the phone. We get on the phone, we have a chat, and then we do the deal. Like it's that, and I do that a couple times a week, and it's that easy. It's incredible. That's the other thing. If someone wants to be a copywriter, or an email specialist, I would start, one thing I could say is like start a blog, not just a blog, but start a website, put something out there that sets you, because if you're going to be a copywriter, you're a bit of a personal brand. So set something up like that. Do some podcast interviews, or write some blog posts, some videos. Do something, because you're gonna be glad you did in a year or two's time.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and even if you don't have the credibility now, I could have gotten on a podcast 2 years ago and been like, oh, I've read all this stuff, and started one little dating site or something, and I would have had something to offer. But you have more to offer down the line. But there's no reason to stop you. At that point. And just, I think, no matter what, start building a list, right? I mean, you never know, because one client as well, could turn into a full-time thing if that's what you're looking for at some point, that's worth, $5,000 a month to you or something, or, something that's recurring. But, once you get, like you said, you've got your list, generating a client can be as easy as typing something up and hitting send.
Yeah. It's incredible too. I can take a month off and, come back, and I don't need to sit around waiting for clients after that month, or I might not even have any clients in my email inbox. I just need to send a few emails to the list, and someone's going to be like, "Yeah, let's do it." So when I say set up a website, the main thing is really that set up a website so you can get some email addresses is the real thing.
Right, and you built most of yours through free traffic, right? You didn't. I know you've done some paid, but the majority of your stuff,
most of it's free,
has been through podcasts and different stuff, and buyers, I'm sure, from your product. But it just goes to show you don't have to have anything amazing at the start to start getting things going.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then, is there anything else then you're doing these days to get clients, other than sort of just sending them to your website and getting email signups and stuff like that?
Well, it's funny you say that, because I am doing some different stuff. What I'd like to do is, the clients that come to my site via the podcast and things, some of them are decently sized, and they can, they're going to pay quite a bit of money for stuff. But I want to find companies that I can add at least $1 million, run a campaign for them and do at least $1 million for them in sales. Because I know if I can do that, I can charge them at least $100,000 for a fee. So, and it doesn't require me anywhere, it might require a little bit more work in terms of closing the deal and managing it, but it's a little bit more work to go from making, $5, $10,000 a pop, $20,000 a pop, to going and making $100,000 in one go. So, and I haven't got these clients yet, but what I'm working on is a process. I'm testing a few different ways right now to bring on these type of clients, because the way I used to see it was $100,000. That's a lot of money. I'm not worth that much. And that was the old thinking. And now the way I see it is, all I got to do is find companies where I can add at least $1 million in sales with some sort of sales funnel or campaign. As long as I can do that, then it's worth $100,000 to them. So that's and the ways of doing that, I'm just looking for companies that get a lot of leads that have a really high customer value. And then, this could be car companies, it could be mortgage companies, banks even, any big companies, and trying to work out deals like that. So that's, I think, one of the goals for this year is to start getting those kind of deals.
Right, and so I know you're doing some cold calling and different stuff like that, right? Whatever it takes, sort of, that's your mindset again, just at a new threshold of, what you want to get paid for that.
Yeah, I've done a bit of the cold calls. What I've noticed though is that it's a little bit untargeted. So what I'm working with now is trying to find a better. I did some cold calls with some kitchen and bathroom companies actually, and that worked okay, but it wasn't that relevant. I was getting designers and just small players. So I'm going through. I'm going to change the messaging on my own website a little bit to bring in, to sort of draw in some of the bigger clients, bigger prospects, and then also going to do that outreach. And the outreach will start with cold emails and probably getting them on this podcast actually to talk about if this strategy works. Yeah, there'll be podcasts on this. Of here's how a $10 million company's using. Here's how a $10 million brick and mortar company, because that makes it more interesting, is using direct response marketing to grow their business. Because everyone knows, I've done a lot of stuff on internet marketing, a lot of stuff on sales funnels and emails and traffic and all that. But what would be really interesting and profitable, I think, for my client side of stuff, is to bring on these guys to, imagine getting a guy who does $10 million in sales with a car company, and get him on the podcast to talk about some of the direct response stuff they're doing for themselves. I think that would be interesting.
It definitely reshapes your mindset a lot too, just because I know, when I started with Crisis, I'm originally looking for how can I get more from this email list, or how can I, sort of squeeze out extra stuff from here and there. And it's no, it's really not what we're interested in. Let's build a new funnel that's going to do $1 million a month.
Yeah.
That's what's interesting. Yeah. And that's, and it's, that's like you said, you've sort of changed your threshold. If somebody had said you were going to be looking for clients that would pay you $100,000, a couple of years ago, you'd go, oh, I doubt that. Like, that seems impossible right now. And now it's exactly what you're going after. But it's a different scale on that level of income.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's interesting too. Like, if it's not like every client. If I do that and get this reliable way to get these clients, it's not like it's all going to be $100,000. What'll happen is I'll just find out. Some companies might be $100,000. Like some companies might be able to add, say, $1 million in revenue in the next 6 months, 6 to 12 months. In which case they'll pay 100. Some clients, because they're a little bit bigger, they might be able to do $3 to $5 million, which means the deal's worth $300,000 to $500,000 for me. So it's the pricing then goes up and down depending on the return that I'm going to be able to provide for them. So it's just a bigger game, and I think one thing I realize is the biggest thing that stops most people, including me, from doing this, or what stopped me in the past, is just cutting myself out, being like, oh, I can't do that. Either I can't do it, I don't deserve it, I'm not good enough, no one's going to pay that much, emails aren't worth that much. Now I'm like, screw that. It's ROI. If the ROI is there, then it's worth them paying me.
Yeah, I mean, and that's, I think, just like you said, if you're going to be able to generate $1 million for somebody, why wouldn't they pay you $100,000? And it goes the same with individual emails. I mean, if you're sending to a list of 1,000, 10,000 people, and each email is generating, $300 for them, why wouldn't they pay you $50 to $100 an email? Now, if you get to, if you're writing emails to a 300,000 million person list, whatever it is, and each email does 10 grand for them, why wouldn't they pay you at least $500 an email? Yeah. That's it. The value, what you're going to get paid is relative to the value that you're providing for others. If you're providing them with that level of value, then they're going to be willing to pay you a percentage of that.
Exactly.
It's just a matter of, producing and providing more and more value, with each hour, essentially.
Yeah, absolutely.
So probably wrap this up a bit, but so if there was any one sort of thing you had to say for somebody who was trying to get clients and make a go at this and turn their full-time income into freelancing, like one real keystone piece of advice, what would that be if you can boil it down to that? Move to Thailand so you can live off of very little.
Well, I mean, you can come. When I came to Thailand, like some people come to Thailand and they spend 500. You live in Thailand for $500 a month. So, and it's not that you have to live on $500 a month forever, but you come here and you spend $500 a month, and that means you've got so much less. Because your expenses are so lower, you don't need to make as much money, which means there's less stress and you can focus on just getting clients. You don't have to worry so much. So I think a lot of people, just do the stuff that we've talked about here. Like I said before, the doing stuff is fairly straightforward. It's the mindset stuff you got to work through. But moving to sort of like a low cost environment, a low-cost country, is going to take a lot of stress off, especially in the initial stages. And as soon as you're making more money, as soon as you're making enough to step up your lifestyle, you can do it. I mean, Thailand's a great place. Once you got more money to play with, Thailand is fantastic. And then of course, you can move back to the US, you can go to Europe, you can live, you can do anything. So I think that's one of the best things. That if you're self-motivated, because some people come here and they make $1,000 a month and they get satisfied and they don't go anywhere. But if you're self-motivated and you're ambitious, start off in somewhere like Thailand or the Philippines or Vietnam, get things going, and then go back to wherever you want to go, because that'll give you the sort of, that's what I've done, that's what's worked for me. And I'm not living on $500 a month at all anymore. But I don't think I ever did. Maybe in the Philippines. But that was really how I got started. If I didn't do that, I would never have been able to sort of afford to take a few months off to go and work on this. So that's my suggestion.
Yeah, and I know when we first talked, I was thinking about. I was at the level where I remember I had dinner with some friends and I had $12 in my bank account, and I said, "I'm so broke." And I was like, I'm never going to say that again. And that was the time I remember we talked, and you're like, if you could just save up, $5,000, you'd be able to move here for 6 months comfortably, and be totally sorted. And that was, even then, was like a bigger number. And, but I've just started having a guy intern with me who, actually, I think who's in Thailand. And, he's just getting by at the moment. But you never know. It's not going to be a linear path. Your path's not going to be the same as anybody else. But, now he's getting to work and learn a ton. Because he's able to create time freedom and stuff by being in Thailand and only needing to work, a certain bit to cover his monthly amount. And, if you're grinding it out in the States, trying to, just get by with that much, it's hard to free up that time to create this lifestyle.
Exactly. So I think we're right. Yeah, we are. I'd say we're right on time. We've gone a little bit overboard. But we've done like a big sort of adventure through mindset and clients and copywriting. Is this going to be suitable for the team over at 80/20 email marketing?
Yes, 80/20 email copy.
80/20 email copy. Okay.
I think they'll be very happy with this. And honestly, as much as some people, the fact is people think it's tactics and techniques. That's what's sexy. That's what they want to hear. But it's strategies and principles that, win overall. And it's the mindset that creates it. So hopefully people can take away the fact that that's, the biggest thing. If every day you wake up and your first 30 minutes is spent trying to find a client, you're going to find one.
Yeah. Exactly. So before we go, though, someone, the listener might be a bit curious after this conversation, because people know who I am and where the site is, but they might want to know more about who you are and want to check out the product that you sell, that kind of thing. So where's the best place for them to learn more?
Yeah, so you can go to 8020emailcopy.com, which is just 8020 email copy. I haven't actually reopened the product yet, but I'm planning on doing that pretty soon here, within the next couple of days. Actually, I've just launched it once. But you can go there, opt in, get some cool email stuff from me, and see what I'm about if you like my straightforward, harsh nature.
Do it. Well, I encourage people to go and do that. I have a link to 8020emailcopy.com, and I'll also send it out to the team. So, thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks, man. It's great. Happy 100.
Hey everybody, thanks for listening. If you want to discover more insider tips, tricks, and secrets about driving sales with email marketing, sign up for daily email tips from the autoresponder guy. Go to dropdeadcopy.com/podcast. Sign up, confirm your email address, and I'll send you daily emails on how to improve your email marketing and make more sales via email. You'll find out why open rates don't matter and the 7-letter word that underlies all effective marketing and much more.